Can you take us back to Saturday now that you've had a chance to watch the film and give us your taste of what happened and how you move on from there?
We got beat by a better team that night, plain and simple. No excuses. They played better than we did, and they deserved to win the game. And so we just, like any week, win or lose, you go back and you look at and see some of the things you can improve on and work hard on correcting things.
How about an injury update, as much as you can tell us?
The only thing we know for sure is that we lost Jacob Spomer. He has a torn ACL, so he's going to have surgery. So that's really the only thing for sure that we know of.
And if you had Aaron Judge on your football roster, where would you line him up?
I don't know, probably anywhere he wanted to be. I think, knowing I don't know him personally, but watching him on TV, he's quite the athlete, so he could probably do pretty much anything he wanted.
Coach, was there any sense about anything leading up to the week of preparation or on game day that you felt the team wasn't quite itself, or is it purely X's and O's Saturday?
No, I thought we were prepared. We were fine. It was purely X's and O's. They out executed us, and I thought in the second half coming out that we may get the ball first and go down and moving the ball, and then having a 100-yard interception return. That didn't help, but just plain and simple, they just played better than we did.
Can you share a bit about your tackle room and what that's going to look like without Spomer?
Yeah. Penwright got a little dinged up, but I think he may be okay. And then we got some other guys that will fill in. So, Daniel Tamalolo will probably play, and Roland will probably play, and we'll get some more guys that have been in the rotation and practice, but now it's time that it's next man up. So Spomer's been there for a long time for us. He hasn't missed a game in his 2 years here, so he'll be missed. He's a really good player and very dependable. But we'll next man up.
And could we get your thoughts on New Mexico? Looks like offensively they're a little different this year.
Yeah, we're just kind of getting into it now. They're a dangerous team. They have a really good offensive line, physical offensive line, good backs, a couple quarterbacks that can that have played 13, played a little bit more last week, and have done a good job running the ball. But they're explosive. They do some nice things on offense, so they can score some points.
Morning, Coach.
Morning.
With Mikey going through several injuries this year, is that something you talked to him about trying to protect himself, or is it just a matter of that's just the game and these things happen?
These things happen. It was a situation we were going for the first down, right? And it was close, and he went for a first down, and, pretty big collision on the sideline. And so that's football. He was trying to make a play, but he'll be okay.
Kind of crazy to think that we've reached the last home game of the season, but it's also senior day. You've had some seniors on the team that were with you when you were here the first time around. Anything you want to say about those guys in the senior class?
Yeah, senior day is always an emotional day. It's a great day because you've seen the guys who, especially the guys that were here before when I was here, like Eric Brooks and Stephen Comstock and some of those guys who have been here for a long, long time. So it's always an emotional day for them to go down the ramp, for the last time. It'd be nice, we're going to work our hardest. We're going to have to play really well to get a win, but it would be nice to send the seniors out on a positive note.
Coach, when you were here the first time, Jamie Christian was on your staff, and up until about a week ago, he was on New Mexico's staff as the special teams coordinator. Were you surprised when you heard that news that he was relieved with a couple of games left?
I did not know that. That's the first time I've heard that.
Yeah, they relieved him of his duties about a week ago of special teams. And I mean, you know him well. I obviously just found out this news, but what is he like as a coach, as a player, as somebody who knows this conference?
Yeah, well, I was coaching here a long, long time ago as a coordinator when he was on the team. He was a tough player. He always did a good job for us here when he was the special team coordinator here. Good guy, hard-working guy. I'm surprised to hear that. I did not know that.
Hey, Coach. With Mikey, is it similar to when he was coming back from the previous injuries that you're going to kind of monitor him all week long? And is it a new injury? Is it unrelated to what he was suffering from previously? Is it maybe something with his head or concussion related?
Yeah, he had some minor concussion symptoms, and so felt like it was important that we protect him from that. But he was okay yesterday, and but it's something that we need to monitor for sure.
What's senior day like for you at this point, emotionally speaking?
Yeah, it's emotional. Senior day, is emotional. I've known these kids for a long, long time. Some of them, and so it's we've grown. We've had relationships. We've seen them grow. Not just as football players, but as people, grown up to be, fine young men, community guys, mature and develop. And so, it's always, it's emotional for them. It's emotional for their family. It's emotional for me. And so you do your best to try to control those emotions, because typically there's some tears coming down the ramp, but then you got to get a hold of yourself and get ready to play a game.
And one of those seniors you kind of touched on a little bit, but Lavelle Bailey, he's a guy who's just started from the get-go in this program. What's it like to think about the fact that, his Bulldog journey's almost coming to an end?
Same as all of them, really. They come here as young kids, really not knowing what to expect, and like I said, you see him grow and develop over time as people. Him obviously as a leader, who is one of our captains. It's you hate to see those guys go, right? I mean, you wish they were around forever, but every year it's time for guys to move on to the next chapter of their life, and I think they've done a nice job of preparing themselves for the next chapter of their life through their experience here. All right, thank you.
Morning.
Morning, Coach. What did you see when you were looking at the run defense and San Jose State? They had one guy with 200, another guy with 93. I mean, that's a big number.
Yeah, they're big numbers for sure. It was very disappointing. We haven't had many games like that over the years, but it happened. And first and foremost, I'm disappointed in myself that we didn't perform better. There was a series of things that kind of happened throughout the game that we never could get control of, and as a result, that was as bad a run defensive game as I think we probably ever have had. So we gotta get it right, get it fixed. We didn't, obviously, during the course of the game. We tried different things. It didn't. It was kind of hit and miss a little bit as we went forward throughout the game, and they did a good job with what they. But it wasn't like it was things that they hadn't done before. They just did more of it. They were throwing the ball probably 33, 35 times a game, and they threw it 18. and just relied on the run game. And the run game, we never stopped it.
So when you have a game like that, do you just flush it, just basically pretend like it didn't happen and move forward, or are there specific things that you point out? Like I guess what I'm asking is, what was Tell the Truth Sunday like in a situation like this?
Well, the players were obviously very disappointed, and they had to see where the breakdowns were, yet we also wanted them to understand it's a collective thing. I think there's times where we've felt really good about how we've handled certain things that have come up in games, myself particularly, and that wasn't the case in this game. They got us. And so what we did yesterday was talk about it briefly, and then we went into the weight room because it was dark out when we met, and we went through a walkthrough that corrected the plays that really hurt us in the game. We walked them through, talked about what we could have done better within the scheme that we had, because there were a number of things that happened. Some of it, we overcompensated, we overran a ball, we stayed backside and didn't flow over the top. There were things schematically that shouldn't have happened in the game, but it did. So we had to get that sorted out first. Then we took them through a series of adjustments that we could do in the future to help us in those situations. So in other words, we corrected what went wrong, but we also had some other additional answers for them after studying the tape and seeing what happened, because you always have to anticipate someone else is going to try to do that now that it's on tape. So it was a productive meeting. It wasn't a high-spirited meeting by any means. None of us felt great about it. But at the same time, it's part of the game. You learn from it. You move forward. And certainly, we've got the most important game of the year this week on Saturday night. So we got to not brush it off, but learn from it, get refocused on what we have to accomplish.
And Coach Tedford referenced the fact that New Mexico is a dangerous team, coming in here, and they look different than they did last year. New quarterback transfer from UAB. What have you seen from their offense so far?
I've been impressed with their offense. They're averaging close to 400 yards a game, and they're balanced. They're rushing for about 163. They're throwing for 223, I believe. The quarterback's got a good arm, good athlete. He's a veteran player. Been with the coordinator at UAB, so I think there's a great connection there. The guy that played last week, because the starter had, was sick, is what we heard, and so they started 13, who was a very, very good athlete at quarterback, and he, in his first start, was very impressive, running the ball. He threw the ball effectively. So they got two guys. We anticipate we may see a little bit of both of them. They had been featuring 13 more situationally, more as a red zone guy when they got down in the red zone, because he was a good runner. And with that, they're one of the better red zone teams in the country, scoring touchdowns-wise. A lot of it has to do with the fact that they got a good quarterback run game. So, it's a challenge. They're good. They have good running backs. Both the backs are averaging over 5 yards a carry. The receivers, they kind of spread the ball around. They got a couple of guys with around 30 catches, 2 or 3 of them actually. It's a good offensive football team that we have got to be extremely prepared for.
Coach, I'm sure that the defensive struggles on Saturday probably rattled the confidence level maybe a little bit. Mm-hmm. How much do you rely on a senior leader like Lavelle Bailey in a week like this, who's been through stuff like this in the past, to kind of calm the waters a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, Lavelle, all the seniors, we talked about the fact that this is an important week for them. It's an important week for everybody. We've got to go out and play winning football on Saturday night and kind of right the ship, so to speak. But You know, without making a big point of it, you know, you look around the country and there's teams every weekend that good teams that have a bad outing, and you know, as a coach, you never want that to happen. That's just goes without saying. But we also talked to the guys a little bit about that, you know, and there's evidence of that every week, and why it happens. Sometimes, you know, afterwards you can put your finger on it, but while it's happening, it's hard to stop. But you know, we can't afford that, obviously, this week or next week or anywhere down the line. So our seniors are going to have to step up big, and I know they will.
And then just you know, a quick thought on the seniors and Lavelle in particular. Is there anything about Lavelle Bailey, you know, besides the football player that you really admire or appreciate?
You know, he's got a great spirit about him. He's enthusiastic. He's got an infectious personality. The players, he's very smart. You know, Lavelle is a guy that sits in the meeting room. He kind of analyzes what's being talked about. Has his opinion about it, whether he likes it or not, in some situations, which is good. When you have a veteran player, you like to get that kind of feedback. You know, he's a special guy, and really across the board, we got some really, really great guys. You know, guys up front like Isaiah and Devo and Johnny Hudson. You go into the back end, you got Carlton, you got Steve Comstock. You know, guys that have been fixtures, you know, the last couple of years around here. So, you know, it's an important week for us as a team, and particularly for the seniors. So, we're looking forward to that.
Coach, you talked the previous two wins about how Johnny Hudson and Gabriel Lightfoot were a big part of that, and you talked to them before the bye week. Just how critical was it that they were both dinged up in this game and unavailable?
It hurt. You know, there were certain things that happened in the game, and I think them being nicked up affected our ability to hold the point in certain instances. But you know, that again it's football. You know, we're week 10. We're going to have injuries. We need guys to step up, and we got to overcome that.
A couple of guys that did seem to step up, Phoenix Jackson and Kosi. What did you see from them?
You know, Phoenix got a considerable amount of snaps in the game. You know, he played with great effort. Has things to get better at, to be perfectly honest with you, as we talked about it after the game. Kosi got a lot of action. We've been kind of waiting to get him into the rotation some, and he was, unfortunately, got a lot of action. You know, the safeties were, you know, making tackles way too often, and but he did some good things. He did some things that we had to get fixed and corrected, and but it'll be good to have him because he's a physical presence.
And referring to New Mexico's two different quarterbacks, how different do things look when one or the other's in?
Well, you know, I don't think that they were necessarily anticipating the starter to be down with an illness last week. I didn't even know that till yesterday when we got the game tape, and I was wondering why 13 was in there the whole time because, like I mentioned, in previous games he was a situational player. You know, got in later in the games, but got in the red zone at times and things like that. What he is, he reminds me somewhat of the Boise quarterback that didn't play a lot in our game, and that type of athlete, getting the ball on the perimeter. They do some things in the run game that they have done with the other guy, but it seems like the frequency is higher with him in the game. And you know, from that standpoint. So I don't know if it's going to be just the situation or the fact that he had a solid performance may boost his playing time up some, but we have to be prepared for both.
Coach, we didn't see a whole lot of Malachi. I don't know if we saw him at all in the second half. Any concerns there?
No, it was certain things that we had planned to use Phoenix in the game, and then when the game in the second half kind of got a little bit out of hand there, we made the decision that we would hold him out. But no, he's fine, and I anticipate he'll be a major player Saturday.
And we're at the point of the season where 2 regular season games, at most 4 games left, and maybe some of those guys who are preserving a redshirt year, maybe we'll see some on the field. Is there anybody you think we might get a taste of this week?
It's hard to say, to be honest with you. We really haven't talked much about that yet this week, so we'll dive into that a little bit more as the week goes on. But we still have a number of young players that have been in the rotation that will, possibly see action. But to pinpoint one guy right now, I couldn't tell you.
And lastly, what would you say is the element of this New Mexico offense that puts the most stress on your defense?
I think the fact that they are as balanced as they are in the run and the pass game, you have to go into it on early downs, being very careful not to be too heavy one way or the other. In other words, they have speed on the outside. They will take shots down the field on first and second down. So you have to be concerned about that. But, we've got to really shore up our run defense, obviously, from last week. And that's going to be our focal point going into it. And then, like at most games, you hope you can get them into third down, although I think they're averaging 40% conversion rate on third down, so they're a decent third down team. Okay, thank you.
Coach, let's start with quarterback play. How would you evaluate what you saw from both guys on Saturday and expectations moving forward?
Yeah. Obviously, each of them threw kind of a untimely interception, that I think ultimately affected us in a big way. Logan was not thrust into a great situation there, given the circumstances when he kind of was forced to come in. He came in on a 4th down, and on top of that, with the score what it was, and it was great that I felt good about that he was going to execute the 4th down call when Coach asked if I felt good about going for it, but he was not put into a great situation there. And then we started off the second half and had a drive going, and just the interception that got returned for a touchdown. I mean, that changes things ultimately, because we were in a position to make that an 11-point game, and ultimately it turns into a 25-point game. That was a big swing there. And so overall, though, given the circumstances, turning it into a drop-back pass game and kind of where they were able to kind of drop into coverage, it just wasn't a great situation for success for Logan, the other night.
And what about for you with how few games are remaining in the season? Are there some guys that we haven't seen in a while or haven't seen at all that might get a taste of the rotation here these last couple games?
I mean, we'll see kind of how it plays out. Ultimately, I don't think it's necessarily, it's not like guys have necessarily played poorly. We just had moments where we haven't been great, So I think the big thing for us is these are two really big games. Starting with this one is and Coach Coyle said it. This is, probably the most important game of the season right here. So a huge part of it is just making sure that we've got the right guys in the right spots, and ultimately that's really our job as coaches, and then try and put guys in position to be successful.
And maybe a thought on Jacob Spomer, right? I mean, it's hard when you lose a guy for the season, especially someone who's been that dependable. Can you maybe give us a taste of what he's meant to the team this year and how you see the guys responding in support of him?
Yeah, Spomer's you hit it right on. He's reliable. It's something where you don't notice he's out there because he just does his job day in and day out. It's so consistent, and it's almost like a long snapper. Like, the more you don't notice him, it's a good thing. Him at left tackle has been such a mainstay for us. He's athletic. He allows us to do stuff, maybe to that side that is just taking advantage of his skill set. And not having him as much from just a consistency standpoint, I think is it's gonna affect us, but probably not. I mean, last year, he went down later in the season, had a shoulder issue, and some guys stepped in and kind of took that on. So definitely gonna miss him because he's a really good player and he's a great teammate. Just as far as so consistent, but guys are gonna have to step up. And guys have in the past, and I don't see that not happening again.
Coach, on Mikey's interception, the Spartan player claimed that with the bye week they had so much time to prepare that they felt like they knew what was coming on that one. Just how challenging is it to face a team that has had that bye week and try to game plan against that?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds good when you win. It sounds good to say that. That's something where, they had the bye week. Obviously, they did an excellent job. Like, they had a great plan. I thought their coaches did a really good job. Their coach called a good game on defense. But I mean, at the end of the day, like, the guy made a play. They dropped 8 a lot, and the guy made a play on it. I don't think that it was necessarily the bye week advantage, as much as just I do think that they had a good plan. I give them credit for that.
The topic we came in all here talking about is the conference standings, and I'm sure you guys are still focused one at a time, but is it at all easier to bounce back when 2 wins could get you into the conference championship still?
Yeah, I think that our guys are kind of, intrinsically motivated, inherently motivated anyways. Our guys love football, and that's so you don't necessarily worry about the motivation piece with this team. At the same time, it absolutely just reminds them, like, hey, we got to snap back right now. Like, we don't have time to dwell on what happened on Saturday. So I do think that does play maybe into the quicker snapback. Is like, okay, hey, let's get going on the next one.
And what's your overview of New Mexico's defense? What can you share about them with us?
Yeah, they come from the Rocky Long tree. They're pretty. They try to create a lot of chaos up front. And the number one thing that stands out about their defense is how hard they play. There's one play against Boise where linebacker actually blitzes. They throw a screen. He's on the ground in the backfield, and he actually turns and runs the play down about 40, 50 yards downfield. I mean, they just that's very evident that they take a lot of pride in how hard they play. And, that play stands out, but there's numerous times where you see guys running sideline to sideline. And, so you look at kind of what they do. I mean, they try to create some chaos, but then they play really hard on top of that.
Morning, Coach.
Morning.
Coach Tedford said they played better than us. We got beat. No excuses. Is it also a matter of they just called better plays than us? They just had our hand better than we did?
I mean, when you look at some of the stuff there that, it wasn't like there was stuff where there weren't guys open, or anything like that. I mean, they played better than us. There was times where, are there a handful of calls that I would love to have back? Absolutely. But that's always going to be the case. even in some of our best games, there's still calls I want back. But ultimately, I mean, they played better than us, and I mean, yeah, there's some calls that I want back, and there's some calls that he had really timely calls for what I had called. We threw an interception on a play where, they dropped 8 on that play. It's not great to have drop 8, and then there's times where they blitzed and we threw a touchdown on it, because they played man and we double moved them. And so that's always the back and forth. But, at the end of the day, yeah, I want calls back, but I mean, it's just one of those days.
And with Mikey being, I guess we could say, injury prone over the last couple months, does that concern you at all as an offensive play caller? And have you had discussions with him about just throwing it away and trying to protect himself?
Yeah. There's some times where, maybe, a guy, and I think ultimately really both those guys, Logan and Mikey, they're so competitive that maybe they take hits that they don't necessarily need to, because, I mean, Mikey was trying to get the first down the other night on the one that ended up kind of taking him out of the game. So there's part of what makes him good is how competitive he is, and there's times where it's like, man, just throw that away and live to fight another play. But yeah, I mean, that's something that you're kind of always conscious of, and I think that shows up with like uber competitive quarterbacks. Is there's times where they, there's times he's taking sacks, there's times where he's gotten hit, where he's trying to make a play, and you don't want to coach that out of him, but at the same time, you got to kind of coach that out of him just as far as just kind of the time and the place.
Coach, I'm sorry. Did you say, are you planning for Mikey to be the starter on Saturday at this point, or do you not know?
I don't know the answer to that.
Gotcha. I'm curious to get your take on another quarterback. I mean, last year when you were in the wide receiver room and Jalen Henderson was on the team, did you see from him what we ended up seeing from him against Mississippi State on Saturday?
I'm so excited for Jalen just because, I knew just because maybe it didn't work out here, for him, that it doesn't mean it's not going to work out somewhere else, and I think that's part of the beauty of the transfer portal is you see a lot of guys where maybe it didn't quite work out, a certain way, but, it's cool to see, and it's something where I was talking to my wife before our game the other day, and she was watching him play, and she's like, man, like Jalen's killing it, so I'm excited for him. It's just the way that it fell here, but, he's a good player, and it's cool to see. No, I mean, I think between Coach Tedford, Coach Wade, myself, like we've kind of all been there, So you get the guys ready that are ready to go, and the guys that are kind of on the cusp. You do what you got to do to help them prepare. We don't necessarily change a ton, So it's not like, it's like not like we scrap the whole plan just because one guy's playing and one guy's not, So, I think ultimately you kind of make the game plan going, either one of them could play anyways. You're always one play away. And so that's probably the main thing is that, you're always one play away anyways, and we'll just do our best. And, at the end of the day, we got to do a better job as coaches than we did last Saturday. Like I got to do a better job than I did last Saturday. I got to take accountability for that, So at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter who's playing quarterback. We got to make sure we get everybody ready to go. It's a tough play, it is, you're full speed, rolling to your right, and the receiver's kind of running vertical away from you, and defender's in a good spot. That's a tough play, but at the end of the day, Logan's a competitor. He's trying to make a play. He trusted Josiah, as he should. That's a play that I think Josiah can, make more often than not, as far as if the ball is placed in the spot where he can go get it. We talk a lot about giving our guys a chance, and so you know, Logan's the one playing. I'm the one with the rewind button when I'm watching the film on Sunday. You know, he's the one playing. From what I understand, I believe Coach Hill was trying to make that happen, you know. And, I mean, yeah, it's kind of like LeBron James would be an awesome football player too, you know. But there's a reason why those basketball players and baseball players choose those sports. You know, that guaranteed contract's a little bit different than the NFL money. So, you know, but, yeah, I mean, you know, it's just such an incredible athlete that's done amazing things. And, yeah, he would have been a hell of a football player, that's for sure.